I've had several comments, people asking me, what's your thoughts on the 6.5 Grendel? And I was holding off on this video because this other place wanted to sponsor a video and they were going to send me a rifle which was in 6.5 so I could put it in front of the camera, but that was forever ago, so I'm assuming they don't want to do that anymore. So let's get rolling. The case was made in 2000, well, it hit the market in 2003. It's got a barrel life of 5,000 rounds. Not bad at all. Normally when you go to one of these off-the-wall cases, something different from what the military has, you're typically giving up barrel life. So that's pretty good. It's not that barrel sensitive. Now, if you go outside the scope of what barrels you'd probably be using, then it starts to get a bit barrel sensitive. But the barrels you're probably going to be using is either going to be a 16 or a 20-inch barrel. The difference in velocity between these two barrels, 81 feet per second. It's not even 100 feet per second you're giving up, going all the way down to a 16. Kinetic energy, you're looking at something between, obviously it matters on your loading, barrel length, etc. Somewhere around 1,500, 1,600 foot-pounds per second. Or feet per second. Nah. Pounds per square inch. Sorry, I'm off in the weeds. So what does all that mean for you? How does that even help you? Alright. So typically, 0 to 300 yards, what you're going to be using is a 5.56. Because it dominates in that range, there's not really a whole lot that can even come close, much less doing better than a 5.56. After 300 yards, you start stepping up in cales. The problem is the rifles get heavy, and you lose a lot of magazine capacity. So what the 6.5 Grendel does is it's what I'd call a low velocity projectile or a low velocity cartridge. It allows you to shoot those farther distances if you're willing to give up a couple of things. Mainly impact energy and velocity. But still, the impact energy at 1,000 yards, alright, to put it into perspective, a 45 APC, 355 at the muzzle. The 6.5 Grendel, 350 at 1,000 yards. So yeah, it's definitely got enough energy to get in and penetrate, because I mean, we all know a 45 is a pretty good cartridge for pistols. And your magazine capacity, for example, you go up to like an AR-10 size action, you're looking at about 20 cartridges. With the 6.5 Grendel, typically about 25. Now, there are some websites that are like, hey, don't load past 22, otherwise you're going to have malfunctions, but we'll just say 25. So you pick up an extra 5 shots on a rifle that's still more than capable of shooting 1,000 yards. Well, that's pretty awesome. So what are the downsides? It is past 300. If you're not shooting past 300, it makes absolutely no sense to not go with a 5.56. So when you build your rifle, you build it, I am going to start shooting this rifle at 300, and it's going to shoot farther. A 5.56 just has way too many advantages from 0 to 300. Let's take a look at some of them. Number one, you get 17% less capacity out of a 6.5 Grendel over a 5.56 mag. Oh, where are we here? Yeah, number one. Number two, 2,200 feet per second. When a projectile is moving faster than 2,200 feet per second, it causes mass damage to the target because the bullet moves the material out of the way so rapidly. It makes a larger permanent wound cavity because you get a lot of ripping and tearing. When it's moving slower than 2,200 feet per second, it just destroys what's directly in front of the projectile. Give or take a little bit. A 6.5 Grendel holds 2,200 feet per second, depending on the cartridge you're using, anywhere from 100 to 250 yards. The weight of the projectiles themselves, you're looking at 25% heavier than a 5.56. So inside 300 yards, I can carry more ammunition, I have a higher velocity, causing more damage, and the ammunition's lighter. Now, past 300 yards, yeah, the 5.56 is very capable. You could definitely make 600-yard shots. It's done all the time on YouTube. However, the cartridge kind of takes a big old fat poopy at 300 because that's a velocity-based cartridge. It doesn't have a wide diameter. It doesn't have a bunch of mass. So, when you start at 300, the 6.5 Grendel is really great. Now, obviously, if you're going against living tissue, I would still step up to your bigger platforms. However, the 6.5 Grendel can still make those shots. There's no doubt about it. A facial from a 6.5 is just as effective as a facial from like a 243 or a 308 or something like that. It's definitely got the kinetic energy to get inside there. I myself, though, would just pick something a little bit different. If I'm shooting at some sort of living target, either one, it's a game animal, and if I don't get a really solid killing hit, I'm going to have to track it for a long time. Or number two, that particular animal probably has a blue helmet on, probably is also armed, and if I don't put it down fast and hard, it might shoot back at me. Hold on for 1 second. So yeah, myself, I would prefer something that hits a little bit harder past 300, but it isn't necessarily required. If you were to go with a 6.5 Grendel, you can go with a far lighter package because the receiver set's the same. Yeah, your bolt face is different. Yeah, your barrel's different. Yeah, your magazine's different, so there's really no parts interchangeability, but you can make a very light package. So if you're willing to give up that hard-hitting power, you can most definitely get shots on target with your 6.5 Grendel. Now, the 6.5 is a good projectile, not that it's just a good projectile, period. I should probably break this down. Alright, so your projectile length, the longer your projectile is, the faster of a twist rate you need. Obviously, you're also going to pick up more weight, so therefore you got to put more powder behind it to get it moving fast. Well, a 6.5 projectile is still light enough where I can extend that out and maximize the BC on the smaller platform rifles. Now, when you're going with an AR-15, like a 6.5 Grendel, obviously you're sacrificing your muzzle velocity. For me, that's a pretty big deal. For a lot of people, it ain't, especially if you're just shooting at paper. Or if 99.999% of the time it's going to be shooting at paper, but it might also shoot at blue helmets, well, you want to plan for the rule, not the exception. So yes, it would be just fine right there. To really move the 6.5, you really got to go with like, what is it, a 6.5 PRC, I believe it's called. I can't remember, I'll Google it and I'll put it right here. But for example, if I want to maximize a 30 caliber projectile, because yeah, a 30 caliber projectile will walk circles around a 6.5 projectile. However, I need to put a lot of powder behind it to get any sort of reasonable velocity. I need to pack that bad boy in like a 300 Win Mag. And then like a 250 30 caliber projectile, yeah, the 6.5 can't even hold a candle to it. However, I'm looking at a bolt gun, a giant frickin' like fireball this big coming out the end, massive recoil. Those are all big things that really make the 30 caliber projectile not that desirable unless you're actually shooting at living tissue. With a 6.5, where, you know, it's more towards shooting at paper, well, it's a lighter projectile, so therefore you can go longer. You can get closer to maxing out the twist rate, because no matter what, every rifle or every cartridge is going to max out. I like to make the cutoff line a 1 in 8. Yeah, you can go with 1 in 7s and get the real crazy stuff, but once you go to a 1 in 7, you're really sacrificing a lot of barrel life, etc., etc., etc. So I draw the line at 1 in 8. So a 30 cal, I got to go up to like a 250 or a 220, somewhere in there, and I got to put a lot of powder behind it with a 6.5. Because I'm already accepting the fact that it's probably not going to be shooting at living tissue, well, I can just knock the velocity down, not get the same amount of velocity, but I can still get it moving fast enough so it's not like a 900 feet per second cartridge, and I can max out the twist rate and platforms like your AR-15, or I could go with a 6.5 Creedmoor and put it in an AR-10 platform. Now, if you truly want to max it out, because a cartridge really should be close to 3,000 feet per second, you can go down to, I like to draw the line at 27, but Obviously, I shoot 168 grains out of my 308, so I do make an exception because that's like 2650 to have enough velocity to really do some damage. Where was I going with that? Oh yeah, so the 6.5 it's like PPC or PRC or something like that. I'll roll it in right there. Is really where you need to go if you want to max out a 6.5. However, you know, we've already decided it's shooting that paper, so we don't really need that much velocity. We just need the velocity to have a respectable trajectory out to say 1,000 yards. A 6.5 Grendel or a 6.5 Creedmoor can definitely accelerate it fast enough to be able to do that. So you're looking at low recoil, a lightweight weapon. It's a really good way to go. Now, I could throw like 220s and like a 308 case and knock the powder way back down, but it's just not going to really do a lot ballistically speaking. 6.5 Grendel, much lighter projectile. I can knock the powder down, but still hang on to just enough velocity to call it reasonable. So that's my thoughts on the 6.5 Grendel. Past 300 yards, yeah, it's not a bad choice. Not a bad choice at all. Just shooting that paper, yeah, not a bad choice at all the way out to 1,000. If I'm going to be shooting at living tissue, myself, I wouldn't pick it. I would pick something else. I would run 5.56 out to 300, then probably 308 or 243 out to 500, and then I'd be looking at going to like a 300 Win Mag past that. But again, you know, sometimes you just don't have those options. Apologize, this video is kind of all over the place, but man, it's a really complex topic. I hope I was able to just push it down into something a little bit more consumable, because it should have been like 4 or 5 30-minute videos to truly get into it. So I'm just broad stroking it, going right over the top of all the information. Anyway, if you'd like to help support the channel, got my Patreon right there. I also have affiliate links in the description down below. Just by clicking on those links, even if you don't purchase what the link is for, I had a little kickback because you came there off my channel. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe.